we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, which in 2024 they finished 10-7. They finished second in the AFC North, and then they go and lose in the wild card round to the Baltimore Ravens, 28-14. I just want to go to some key stats real quick, and then we can kind of talk about the season as a whole. Offensive DVOA, they were 19th in the entire league. Defensive DVOA, they were 8th in the entire league. Points scored, they were 16th in the league, which was extremely shocking to me, honestly, because they felt terrible last year. And then points allowed, they were 8th in the entire league. After starting the season 10-3, we go back and look at what happened with this Pittsburgh Steelers team, and it's the same song and dance every single year. They open up the season, they're decent, they do their thing, and then you go and you look what happens towards the end of the year. Their defense falls off the cliff, their offense isn't good enough, and they go make the wild card and then get shit stomped. It's nothing new. They've been doing it for almost 10 years now. What do you have to say about the Pittsburgh Steelers 2024 season?
I have a couple stats that I wanted to share too. So
Let's do it.
they've had back-to-back 10-win seasons while only leading at halftime of 5 of each of those games. So the Steelers' yards per play stats were 5 yards per play in 2023 and 2024, which would equate to a team that wins 6.5 games. Their success rate on plays in 23 was 37.3, and then 24 was 38.1. That would equate to a team that would win 6 to 6.5 games. And their expected points added was negative 0.09 and 0.06 in 23 and 24. And that would equate to a team that wins 6 to 7 games. So the reason I say this is because obviously the Steelers have won 10 games in back-to-back years, like I just mentioned. But I think those few stats are very telling on just who the Pittsburgh Steelers are. The real Pittsburgh Steelers team is the team that we have seen down the stretch these last 2 seasons. They somehow managed to win a lot of close games earlier in the year, but I just think that is so fluky from a stats point based off of those things that I've just rattled off to us. It's like the real Pittsburgh Steelers team is who we end up seeing from weeks 10, 11 on.
The Pittsburgh Steelers in general are fluky. They're not good. Nobody takes them serious. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. It's almost been 10 years. The way that they treat this offense, they're top of the league spending on defense and bottom of the league spending on offense. They don't take the quarterback position serious. I mean, this team is truly laughable, honestly. And the only thing that the fan base and people who support the Pittsburgh Steelers can hang their hat on at this point is Super Bowls that got won like fucking 30 years ago, maybe more. And the fact that Mike Tomlin can go 500 every single season. Well, Mike Tomlin goes 500. It's like, okay, well, good for you guys. You guys get stomped every single year in the wild card round if you guys make the playoffs. So yeah, this team in general is just, it's a dumpster. It is a sneaky dumpster fire team. And the Pittsburgh Steelers fans that I have like in my life, their argument is always like, well, our season, our like every season is like what majority of the leagues would like dream to have, that sort of season, like a 500 season and make it to the wild card. It's like, I get that point. You're correct. But at some point, like the Steelers organization needs to figure out a way to like take it up to the next level, because if your baseline
can I push back on that?
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of teams that actually would not want to be set up how the Steelers are.
Well, I was just about to say that. Those words were just about to come out of my mouth. Because no, you're good. I'm just saying, like, it's that is fair. Like, if you're like the Carolina Panthers, like, yeah, sure, like getting to the wild card round is a massive step. But like then after you make the wild card round, you want to take another step up. You don't want to just be in a revolving door of the same thing that happens every single year, which they've been in for the last 10 seasons. So no, I do not agree with like that sentiment in any way, shape, or form, because you as a fan base at the Steelers as an organization who are like very respected and one of the highest regarded organizations in the entire league should want to try to figure out a way to get over that hump and take the next step and not just be the same team that they are every single season.
Yeah, I think that there's probably a group of like 3 to 5 teams in the NFL that would look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and say, "Yeah, it would be nice to make the playoffs every year." But I also like can't necessarily take some of those franchises seriously, because if you just want to get to the playoffs every single year, like that almost kind of like that kind of defeats the purpose. Like, yeah, great, you want to make the playoffs because you can't win a Super Bowl if you don't, but the goal the goal at the end of the day should be to win and compete for a Super Bowl, even if that's not necessarily like the goal today. Like, say your goal for 8 o'clock at night is to win a Super Bowl, but you're only at 12 p.m. lunchtime. Like, you're the Panthers. Realistically, you're not going to win a Super Bowl. Your expectations for this season should be, let's make the playoffs. That should be like their realistic expectation.
Yes.
So there's like 5 franchises right now that I would probably put in that bucket, but I don't think a lot of other teams.
The worst teams in the league's goal is to make the playoffs. And that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers do every single season, is to just make the playoffs. That's worst team in the league behavior, the way that they act. So they have a safe floor, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. I don't really care about that safe floor. The other thing I want to like highlight is this defense. This defense plays at a really high level, like at the beginning of the season, but like it feels like, and at the end of the year, before I say this too, because I know that people in the comments will be like, oh, like we gave up 13 points. We gave up 19 points to the Bengals in the last week of the season. On this stretch that they were giving up points, like after the bye week, they gave up 27 to the Commanders. They gave up 16 to the Baltimore Ravens. Shout out to them. Then they gave up 24 to the Browns. They gave up 38 to the Bengals. They gave up 14 to the Browns again. Shout out to them. 27 to the Eagles, 34 to the Ravens, 29 to the Chiefs, and then they ended up the season and giving up 19 to the Bengals. They were allowing teams to really be able to move the ball on them, rushing and passing last year. And I forget the stat off the top of my head, but it was like a very large amount of snaps last season where TJ Watt didn't even have a recorded stat like on the book for like an extended period of time. So although, yes, this defense is really good when it matters most towards the end of the season, and then in the playoffs when they get stomped legitimately every single year, it just that defense doesn't matter. That's not a talking point anymore. If your defense can't show up in the playoffs when teams are throwing 28 to 30 plus points on your head every time you play somebody in the wild card, you don't have one of the league's top defenses the way that everybody acts like they do.
Yeah, and it's the same thing every year. They start out really hot and then their defense falls when it matters most. It's just, honestly, you can just write it in pen for the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point.
I want to say something because obviously they went and got Aaron Rodgers. I think that's like a zero move. It doesn't move me at all. My question to you is, and we kind of got into it the other day when I said this, but like I actually felt that Russell Wilson like actually played decent football for them last year for what they were given. The run game wasn't that great. The offensive line wasn't that good. Their skill group was probably one of the worst in the entire NFL. They obviously had Pickens, who's good, but the rest of that crew is like a group of misfits almost. They're just not very good. And I felt like Russ put up some like pretty decent performances. I'm looking at him like throughout the course of the season, like nothing to snub your nose at. I mean, obviously some stinkers, like he didn't play well against the Eagles, but I'm looking, the highest rusher in the game against the Eagles was Najee Harris, and he had 14 yards. So like, I just think
that's
like,
actually, I'm looking at that.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So my question to you, and I know that, listen, you had your stance on Russ the other day, and I respect that. I'm not saying that he's like the best in the NFL or anything like that. I felt like what Russ did last season with this team, though, was enough to solidify him at least getting another year. Like, at least getting another year with this football team and allowing it to kind of gel. It kind of feels like now what the Pittsburgh Steelers do is just like this revolving cast of faces and names and everything like that. It never gives the team the opportunity to gel, when I feel like if you just kept kind of the same people that you had last year, like a George Pickens, like a Russell Wilson, etc., and then tried to upgrade around that, you know what I mean? Like add a second
bring
receiver,
yes,
maybe like add some pieces around, like they went and got Jonnu Smith, like things like that. But
they
keep
got a
Russ
good running
because
back in the draft.
yeah, but keep Russ and allow him to continue to kind of grow with Arthur Smith in this offense and everything. I felt like there was nothing that indicated why Russ shouldn't have been brought back to this team next year. And of all people, to bring back Aaron Rodgers instead of Russ, where I get it. Everybody, like Pittsburgh Steelers fans, love Aaron Rodgers right now. It was the same thing with the Jets fans. Think about what happened with the Jets. At a point, he's like a locker room cancer. He is proven at this point that he is a locker room cancer.
The Steelers loved Russ when they signed him, and they loved Justin Fields when they signed him.
Oh,
so
they
it's just
love Justin Fields.
It's just like it's a delusional fan base when it comes to and I get it. That's what being a fan is convincing yourself that somebody's going to be good now that they're on your team. We hear it all the time. But I tend to I agree with you with like the gelling and the chemistry aspect, because it's not like they were getting rid of Russ and trying to move on to somebody that's like leaps and bounds
Significantly better. Yeah.
Yeah, they're moving on to how even old is Aaron Rodgers?
42.
38? Even older than I thought. So like moving on to a older quarterback in a new system that
41. He turns
41.
42 in December.
So yeah, just moving on to a new guy that isn't going to make you significantly better doesn't really feel like that great of a move if you could keep some cohesion and try to bring in some better weapons to help out your quarterback. Like they're at this point where it's just like, we're bringing in low to bad quarterbacks every single year. We might as well just keep one guy and try to build up everything else around it, so that when the time comes, we have an opportunity to really improve the quarterback position, and then we actually have some cohesion and more talent around them on the offensive side of the ball.
And they didn't even give Russ the opportunity to cook.
They didn't. They took a spatula.
No, all jokes aside, I do think that I think Russ didn't play awful last year. I never watched like those games, and like he was making some things happen. Like even when I was reviewing some of the games that he put up, like I was almost shocked by some of the performances. He threw for 414 yards against, of course, it was the Bengals, so it doesn't count. But like still, like the fact that Russ had that sort of performance in him last year, like almost shocked me a little bit. I was like, wait a second, like. And I'm not saying that Russ is like a world beater by any sense of the imagination, but I feel like he gives a pretty safe floor to a team, and just allowing there to be some sort of cohesion and not being a revolving cast of names and talents and everything like that. I feel like it could have helped. But that's just my opinion on the situation. And another thing is like having that old of a quarterback. The only person that has ever done anything at that age is Tom Brady. And that's the end of the list. So it would be an absolute statistical anomaly to have Aaron Rodgers have some sort of coming out party that only one person in the history of the game has been able to do.
Do you have the accurate number for the Steelers rushing yards per game? I have a number, but I'm not entirely sure how spot on it is.
No.
Did you have I had him at 126 rushing yards, which is 11th in the NFL. I'm looking through their game logs, and I legitimately have no fucking clue how I got to that number, because every every high rusher, nobody had 100 and like there wasn't one person. I know it's not just made up of one person, but like there's some absolute duds in here from like a rushing perspective.
I
Like
mean,
maybe they rush for more, like because it was relatively split between Warren and Harris is kind of what it is looking like, but towards the end of the season after the bye at least. But I mean, putting up 14 rushing yards in a game and that being the
Jaylen Warren
highest
was hurt for the first half of the year. But
for the
yeah,
first half.
I mean, if you just simply watch the games, like their running game was extremely clunky and everything. So yeah, I'm not shocked that you think that at all. Let's get in the 2025 offseason though. Now, like I said, some losses. They traded George Pickens. I think this was a crazy move. I really do. I feel like I get it. George Pickens might be an asshole and they don't like how he acts and weren't going to pay him anyway and go and get something for him. But you go and you trade for DK Metcalf. And honestly,
who's also an asshole
at this point in DK Metcalf's career and who he is, I just think Pickens has a better upside. Like, I think Pickens is a better player than who DK Metcalf is. So I feel like you downgrade by bringing in that wide receiver over a young talent that you had on your team who has shown flashes of being like extremely special. I looked at, like, I said this the other day because we were talking about it in fantasy, like what Pickens has been able to do in his first 3 seasons as a starter are insane. He had 801 yards in 2022, 1,100 yards in 2023, and he played in 14 games last season and finished with 900. And that is on some of the worst offenses in the entire NFL. Yeah. So I just feel like moving on from him and not wanting to pay him was a little bit of a mistake. And then the guy who they brought in DK Metcalf and then paid him a ton of money, I just felt like that was a downgrade at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I think it's probably like at the absolute best, people consider it like a lateral move. I think DK Metcalf is like a fine wide receiver, but do I think that you're getting significantly more at that pay than you'd be getting from Pickens in the foreseeable future? Probably not. I think you can get more out of Pickens right now than you can out of DK Metcalf. And I think that money could have probably been spent elsewhere to maybe like kind of improve this offensive line or add another wide receiver to this team rather than just having one good one and moving on to like another one that's probably the same quality, if not worse. So like, I think it is a pretty lateral move, but at the end of the day, I don't know. Maybe that was the move that it was like, this is how we get Rodgers in the building. I don't know. It doesn't really feel like the Steelers can make a good move and then they can make some really fucking dumb ones.
Do you have who their roster losses were outside of just George Pickens?
I do, yeah. So they lost Dan Moore to the Titans, Justin Fields to the Jets, Russ to the Giants, Preston Smith, James Daniels, Najee Harris to the Chargers, Mike Williams to the Chargers, and then retire. Van Jefferson to the Titans, Nate Herbig to the Commanders, Kyle Allen to the Lions. That's about it.
And to go into their additions, we talked about a few of them already. Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, and then they go and they add Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey at in their defensive backfield, and then get safety Juan Thornhill as well. They draft Derek Harmon, the first round defensive tackle out of Oregon as well. Before we get into the draft, though, and can you take over the draft when we get there? This team, like all of these moves would have been so sick if it was 4 years ago. Like if this team and Jonnu Smith, like if this was 4 years ago, this would have been like the craziest possible offseason of all time. But I mean, these are all guys who are over the hill, like plain, flat, and simple. They are over the hill.
Pulling this off 4 years ago would have probably been impossible too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, people would have been outraged if this got done a few years ago.
They'd be saying super team.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were the 2016 Warriors.
And but that is kind of it happened last year when they got Russ. Like, bro, my friend who's a Steelers fan texted me after they got Russ, and they said they really let us get a Super Bowl winning quarterback with Russell Wilson.
Demon home.
I was like, what are you? It's like, what are you talking about? And then like same group chat, like when they got Jalen Ramsey, they were like, they really let us get Jalen Ramsey. It's like,
bro,
why are you acting
really
like
let the Browns get a Super Bowl winner?
Yeah, Joe Flacco. Oh, and him too. They have 2 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks on their team.
People forget.
So I just think that, like I said, this team is washed. This is I'm worried. We'll get to it, but I am worried about this football team. Is there anything else that you want to hop into before we get into this Vegas win totals and any possible futures that you have for this football team?
I'll touch on who they drafted, but what is so what does this secondary end up looking like with the trade of Minka? I know Slay's got hurt, but I think he's okay. So is it Slay and Joey Porter Jr. at center, Beanie Bishop at slot, and then I don't know Elliott's first name.
Bishop. What the fuck is Beanie? Oh, Beanie Bishop Jr. The depth
is
chart
Ramsey about to play safety?
The depth chart says Darius Slay, strong safety, Deshaun Elliott, free safety, Juan Thornhill, and the other right corner as Joey Porter Jr. and the nickel as Jalen Ramsey.
Okay. Maybe that works. I don't necessarily love their safeties, but
I think I like their safeties, honestly. I'm more concerned about their corners, honestly, than anything.
I think there's room for concern for all of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah. That's why I said this team's washed. So completely fair.
All right. So moving on to the draft, they took Derek Harmon out of Oregon. I think he's going to be nasty. Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa. I think he's also going to be nasty. Jack Sawyer, defensive end out of Ohio State. Yaya Black, defensive tackle out of Iowa. Quarterback Will Howard out of Ohio State. Linebacker Carson Bruner out of Washington, and corner Dante Kent out of Central Michigan.
So
I have people telling me they're excited for Will Howard at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean they're idiots. I'm not even acknowledging that you just said that. What I do want to say is that I like Caleb Johnson. I was on record saying like that he was going to be nasty. I don't love the situation that he's gone into with the Steelers because of how shotgun heavy Aaron Rodgers is. And that isn't Caleb Johnson's strength. Unless if that changes where they're in an more under center approach, which Rodgers has really never done. So if it happens, it happens. I am a little worried about how Caleb Johnson is going to perform in that sort of scheme. So I am a proceed with caution on him personally, because I don't think the fit is necessarily there for him to succeed, have a big impact year one, not succeed. I think he'll be good long term. I'm not saying that. Just year one, I think it's going to be a big adjustment for him.
So I have another stat that will confirm your coolness on him per se. Let me read you this offensive line. Left tackle Broderick Jones, he's in his third year, 76th among tackles in pressure rate, and committed 10 penalties last year. Left guard Isaac Seumalo, year 10, 27th among guards, but 47th in pressure rate. Center Zach Frazier, graded 6th amongst guards. Mason McCormick, right guard, graded 59th amongst guards. And right tackle Troy Fontenot, who he missed all but one game with a knee injury last year. So not a ton of experience on this offensive line, and certainly some holes at left tackle and right guard, to say the least.
Well, that's perfect.
Maybe right tackle too, because we don't really know what Troy Fontenot really is yet.
Well, that's perfect to have question marks at your right and left tackle and your interior line when you have a 41-year-old quarterback.
That is a year out from a torn Achilles.
So
that's perfect.
The Vegas win totals in future, their over-under right now is sitting at 8.5. I think that sounds just about right. They can win 8 games. They can win 9 games. Yeah. We'll see. Odds to win the AFC North plus 500. I think that's decent. I mean, that's clearly nice value. Honestly, if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, 500 juice is worth your squeeze at that point. But I don't really foresee that happening. And then odds for them to win the Super Bowl at plus 5,500, which, I mean, that's not going to happen. So there's really nothing to talk about here from a future standpoint. Are there any players' futures that you have written down that you like?
I don't know if this number is still accurate, but TJ Watt is somehow only at plus 1,000 to win Defensive Player of the Year. I feel like that's really high because as long as he's playing, he's undoubtedly one of the best. I know you don't love Caleb Johnson, but if this offensive line ends up being better than expected and they win 10 games, he could be an Offensive Rookie of the Year candidate. I think there's better options at running back, but at plus 3,000, I think that's pretty good value.
Is he okay? Jaylen Warren is the starter for them currently.
Yeah, but we've seen that happen where rookie guys end up taking over spots and splitting backfields and all this.
Yeah, I don't see him as like the definitive, like I like Jaylen Warren. He's a good pop guy, but I don't think that he's just like definitively like the number one running back and he's going to snap. Correct. So I'm right with you on that. I like that idea. And I also love that TJ Watt number as well. I mean, it feels like you said, he's the best, one or two best player in the NFL on defense, no matter what, as long as he's playing. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's great. That's great value.
Yeah. But other than that, I don't think there's anything.
Is Jared Verse in front of him?
Let me look. Defensive Player of the Year goes as such. Okay, so TJ Watt, I will say, did move down to plus 850. The only two people in front of him are Micah and Aiden Hutchinson. Jared Verse is at plus 1,500.
Micah hasn't played yet, so I mean, it is what it is. So
yeah.
Schedule review real quick. I know that you have something to do at 6:00. It's 5:57. So just to let you know on your end. Some week 1 matchups. They have just one week 1 matchup actually is the New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers versus Jordan Love. Justin Fields should be interesting. Aaron Rodgers gets to play against his old team, vice versa. Be cool. After that, I don't really like watching the Steelers personally. So I don't think that any of their matchups are like must-watch TV. They're boring. They're a bad football team. So
unless they're playing like Lamar Jackson, because he's must-watch TV, I will say the only other game that I'll obviously have rotating games on throughout the day, but they do play a game at 9:30. I think it's in Dublin game 9:30 against the Vikings. That game might end up sucking, but it's cool to have a 9:30 game, so I will be there to watch it.
All right, let's get into our 2025 predictions. I'm just right away. I don't think the Browns are going to be good, so that's that. I think they finished 3rd in the AFC North, and I think that this is going to be the season that they don't make the playoffs. I'm picking them to only win 8 games. Yeah. I just don't think that we're going to see an Aaron Rodgers rejuvenation. I don't think that anything that they did on offense or defense set them up for success this year and even long-term either. This team is the definition of washed. So that's all I have on them, really. I don't have a big prediction for them. I just don't think that they're very good. I mean, obviously they could win 9 games, sneak in the playoffs, and if they do that, they're going to get smacked first round, but I'm just picking them to miss the playoffs because it's time.
Yeah, I have them at 8 games as well. 3rd place, not going to make the playoffs. So we're in lockstep on that. For a team that needed help on offense and then drafted three defensive players out of the first 4 picks, like that's kind of concerning. Like their wide receiver core is DK Metcalf,
bad,
Calvin Austin III, and Robert Woods. Robert Woods hasn't been good since 2019.
18, yeah, a long time.
So I don't really love that. I like the Jonnu Smith edition, but could he have just been like an absolute freak product of a Mike McDaniel's offense? I don't have any clue. But is he enough to make me say, yeah, this offense is going to get cooking? Absolutely not.
No.
So.
No. That's all I got. I don't have shit to say about them, honestly.
I just spit it. Good girl, we're getting paper as a passion. Collect the stacks and bring it back, man, and take vision.